Well, hello, everyone. Another Saturday we've never seen before. Well, how you doing, Dr. D? How's
I,
everybody doing?
I am doing quite well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Hey, I can't complain. Another day in the wilderness. Yeah, tried to get some rest today. It didn't happen. So today I just felt like, why not just come on and just talk? Now that's something you guys, if we'll wait for a few people to come on and see if they're interested, and let's just talk. Let's just see what's going on in the world. I think I have, what did I say about tonight? So tonight I said, how about helping us with our title for the Patreon page? So I've got some titles. We'll see if anybody's coming on, if anybody's interested, and um, help us with our, just see if they want to help us to name our new Patreon page, where we will be talking about um, how to be a better friend, what happens to old friendship. Maybe that's something we can talk about tonight. Um, what does the real world mean? You know, like you mentioned, people always saying they want to be real. Well, are they real? Are they being real? What does that mean to them? Because for me, I know people say, oh, well, you can word things differently. Nope, I'm going to say it like I mean it. Why? Because everybody else says it like they mean it. I'm saying it in love. If you know me and you know my character, then you know I'm not saying anything to hurt your feelings. But that's something. So why don't you guys share this out? Because we're going to be talking about different things in the real world. We're not going to, you know, sugarcoat anything, and then we're going to tie all this stuff together and let Dr. D read from her book. So if you guys have missed the last two sessions on Saturday, you may want to go all the way back, rewind, and listen to at least the last 30 minutes, because she's reading from her book, and that is Notes from a Broken Heart. Okay, what do you think about that, Dr. D?
I don't think anybody could have planned it better. Thank you so very much. It's good to be able to talk about issues that typically we don't have the time to talk about, which really leads me to where I'd like to start, and that is with time. Time management is critical to what we do and how we behave, but it's difficult to attain. There's never enough time in a day for me to do all the things that I plan to do. So I have to learn to prioritize what it is I can do. And I have to recognize that I can't always do as much as I plan to do. A lot of the insight about time and the use of time has come to me because of the death of my younger daughter, Courtney. Time at that point would either fly by or crawl past me at a snail's pace. Time meant absolutely nothing. I remember the song Help Me Make It Through the Night. I spent many a night and many a day saying, Help me make it through this moment because of what the shock of a death causes. And when you have the shock of a death of a person whom you love, it's even harder. We mourn our puppies. We mourn our goldfish, for that matter. We mourn many things. When it comes to the personal level, it's different, though. And so my time got thrown out of whack. There was no time. It was just trying to put one step in front of the other and make it to the next point.
Nice. Yes. And we all have to prioritize and do things different. So, yes, I agree with that. Now, I saw where is it True Stanley says, oh, sending her love. Hey, True Stanley, why don't you grab the link? I'll go ahead and put it on YouTube and grab the link. Come on up on the platform with us and let's talk. There's a lot we can talk about, and we want to rename. Not sure if you're new. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live. We usually come on Saturday between 5 and 7. You're also welcome to listen to Simply Jewel, a typical podcast. And let's see, this is Dr. Dorothy. I don't know if you have listened to her read from her book the last 2 weeks, but stay tuned for the end. And let me go ahead, guys, and put the link on the YouTube. And anybody that wants to come on, you're welcome to come on. Let's talk about what you're seeing in this crazy world, what is good, what's not good. um, what else can we say? There's just so much going on, and I normally would have a um a couple of topics that I talk about, and we discuss that. So I probably will just talk about them and not show the excerpts on the screen. So here's the link. If you guys want to come on YouTube, you can just click on the link and come on up on the platform so we can talk. I'll go ahead and pin it to the to Simply Jewel TV on YouTube. Okay. And so you were talking about um, planning all kinds of things. What else can you say while I'm adding this link onto YouTube?
Well, when you have the shock of death or the shock of the loss of a relationship, it turns your world topsy turvy. It turns it upside down. Time has little meaning. Day to day activities have little meaning. There's such a difficulty in dealing with the gaping loss, the chasm that occurs when you lose something that's valuable. And that's why I mentioned not only death, but relationships. I can mention also getting a pink slip, is it called, or being told without warning that you're no longer employed where you've been employed for years. or even months, and trying to get one's balance back, trying to make things seem right in a world that suddenly has gone out of control. We people seem to need to feel that we can control just about everything that occurs. Well, of course, we can't control everything. We really control very few things in our lives, but we need to have something, some anchor to hold on to so we don't fly off into space as we might think would happen when our balance, when what has been holding us together leaves for whatever reason. There's so many reasons. You know,
Yeah.
they're saying that we are together for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. That's a wide range of possibilities. But when we're together in what we think is a lifetime and it turns out to be just a season, then what do we do? What do we do? To whom do we call? Do we go spiritual, or do we call our best friend, our BFF? It depends on so many things.
Yeah, and that's true. And a lot of people don't have the tools to do that. They don't know how to get in alignment. They don't know that making healthy choices, eating healthy, is a big thing too, because we are all about eating to make us feel good, but we're not eating that can heal our inside and get us in alignment so we can think straight, so that we can hear our higher power. Sometimes you have to sit still, and sometimes it's not easy. A lot of people think, they talk about their higher power. They talk about, who they connect with. They talk about their spirituality. They talk about their relationship with God. But really and truly, when something shakes you to your core, that's when you're tested. That's what people have to learn how to do. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And that's something well, how do you teach somebody that? You can. You really can. But it starts with eating healthy. It starts with reducing your sugar intake, increasing your water, decreasing your pasta. We talk about spirituality. I want to know who is really teaching people how to eat right. We talk about scripture, we talk about Leviticus and what we should be eating, but who is really teaching people how to get in alignment and how to connect with their higher power? That's the question I have for today. So, who wants to come up and talk about that? Anybody? Dr. D?
Well, I was thinking as you were saying that we respond to crisis in one of two ways that I'm aware of, in terms of eating, especially. One is we stop eating at all, and the other is the extreme. We eat too much. So, which one do we do? If you have no appetite because of the loss, how or to whom do you turn to find out how to do it? I think I hear you saying that people can ask you what it is and how it is that they should eat, what they should eat, whether they should eat fats and morning or fats in the evening or whatever. And then there are people who would have to ask you, what happens when I lose my appetite? When I can't force myself to eat anything?
Some people lose their appetite, and some they do emotional eating. See,
Yes.
that's an issue too. But when you go into your gut and you really want to make healthier choices, you tend to change. People will find a way. But that's the thing too, is to know what to eat and to know that food is your medicine. A lot of people don't think about food being their medicine. They think of it as, what's that saying? I live to eat, not eat to live. Well, you really should eat to live, not live to eat. You see, and you eat. Yeah, and some, like for me, I used to fast for the whole month of January. Now my body is doing something totally different. Now I'm intermittent fasting, and that's the whole the whole 3 months. I'd say I've been intermittent fasting. But now I think when you develop a rapport with and you get in alignment, your body tells you, if you listen to your body, it tells you what to do. But we're so busy chasing and following trends that we're not hearing what our body is saying.
Well, what is intermittent fasting? What
Well,
does that entail?
some people intermittent fast for 8 hours. Some people will say, for example, they don't eat in the morning, they just drink water. They don't
Mm-hmm.
eat in the afternoon, but they only eat in the evening, like at 6 p.m., and they won't eat again until 6 p.m. Some people will only eat um, in the morning. So it depends on the person. Some people will fast 12 hours, some people 8 hours. Okay. But I will say this, if you're a diabetic, you should not fast. You should, some people do it for religious purposes, but most people are doing it and they're getting good results. Their blood levels are better, their diabetes and high blood pressure is better, but you have to know what works best for you because everybody's different. And some people, they will eat at lunchtime and not again until the next day, lunchtime. So everybody's got a preference. There's no remedy to intermittent fasting. It's whatever works for you. Some do it in the morning, some only eat in the evening and they drink water uh, until the evening time. And some people will drink water and juice, or they'll just do water and fruit and then eat a balanced meal at night. But you also got to know, are you getting a balanced meal or are you just eating junk? Because if you're eating junk, that's not really helping. So you have to eat a well balanced diet.
So for those people who typically get up in the morning and drink a cup of coffee and rush out the door, and don't eat until noon, and then there's a space of hours between the time they eat and the next time they eat. Is that what intermittent fasting is?
Yeah, like, well, some people will drink coffee. Now, when you're fasting, say you're getting your blood test, they tell you not to eat anything after midnight, but you can
Right.
have black coffee, as much water as you like, no cream, no sugar in your coffee. That's okay. But some people don't drink coffee because it gives them that rush. you see. But if you only drink coffee in the daytime and you're drinking water in between and not eat until the evening, that's okay too. Some people are okay with that, but some people have to have lunch and then they don't eat again until the next day at lunch. So it's different for everybody.
So it wouldn't be a matter of eating lunch and then 4 or 5 hours later eating dinner. You wouldn't have a dinner meal if you ate
Yeah,
lunch.
some people need to eat. Everybody can't do intermittent fasting.
Okay.
As you know, intermittent fasting became a trend. But people that understand what intermittent fasting does for their body, for
Hmm.
those that have high blood pressure or diabetic, that's where that comes in, because some people can't control their food intake. Some people overeat. Some
Hmm.
people are hyperglycemic and they have to eat. They
Hmm.
have to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and
Okay.
they may work out and they may not gain weight. So everybody's different. That's why it's good to know your body. It's good to know your blood levels. So once you know your blood levels, then you know what to do with your body. But people are following trends and they're doing things that make sense. But if you don't know what your blood is doing, you can be toxic, or you can not do enough of something and delete your minerals and vitamins. You gotta know your blood levels before you know what to do with your body. Your blood tells the story, your blood tells who you are. So that's why we do blood tests, because you gotta know what your body is telling you first. Don't just go out there and do what somebody else is doing. You may not need calcium. You may not need iron. You may not need potassium. You may need sodium. Who knows? But you can't do what other people are doing just because it's a trend. That's a no for me. You got to listen to your body.
Well, do you also have to listen to your doctor, your physician? Would the doctor be the one who would order the blood test, or can you just go in and ask someone at a lab for a series of tests?
Listen, I'm not knocking anybody that loves their doctor if they're getting their answers and if they are um in within range. But I'm gonna tell you something. We now have to listen to our bodies. It's good to listen to your doctor, especially if you have a good doctor. But how many times have you gone to the doctor and the doctor says, well, what are we doing for you today? And what do you want me to do for you today? That lets you know you got to be proactive in your care. But the doctor knows to order. They know you can do a complete blood panel. You still got to know about your thyroid. You got to let them know if you have a rapport with your doctor, they should have documented all this time. They should have baselines of everything. As long as people have been going to their doctor, they ought to know their patient. But if the patient has a question, there's some validity to that. All doctors don't listen. Nowadays, you got to find a doctor. Nowadays, you got to shop for a doctor. Nowadays, they're not taking new patients. So there's, look, there is, it depend on everything. But yes, by all means. But for making healthy choices, you ought to know full well what you're doing and what you're not doing right. Now, if you have what we say ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation, cardiac, that's when you need your doctor. But for healthy choices, come on, people. You know if you're not eating right. You know if you're not doing right. So, as they used to say, push away from the table. do some research, learn for yourself about your own body. Your doctor can't tell you if you're eating wrong. You know you're eating wrong. Now, that's something that just gets under my skin when people go to the doctor for everything, but you already know that you're doing wrong. What you think the doctor's going to say or do? Really?
Well, I don't. I'm not quite sure I agree with that. I am not doctor dependent, but I believe in preventive health, and I believe that the doctor's office would be where I'd start, because in order to get that baseline data, in order to get that information, I thought that a doctor had to order tests,
They
and
do.
okay,
Yes,
so
they
then
do.
you take the test, and then you go back into the doctor, and the doctor explains to you what range you're in, or what wherever you are. The doctor gives you a report on what the blood test reveals. And then the next step is to start making decisions about what to do with that information. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, in a perfect world, yes. But we're in 2024, so they're only going to say you're within normal range. What does that mean? You got all kinds of ethnicities, so you're not going to be within normal range, just means okay. But if you're African American, your ranges are different.
Right,
See, thing is, I did that a few months ago on blood test. We talked about blood test. We talked about knowing if you're Asian descent, Hispanic descent, African American, Caucasians. There's a lot of people that cultural wise, food wise, you would say Asians will eat a lot of rice and they have to worry about um, diabetes or high blood pressure. You can't say that now, you see. So you can be within normal range, but my question is, where did the blood test go to? Because there's more than one lab where you get your blood test, so the ranges vary. You know, um, for African Americans, in the lab where I get my blood test and get results, you're supposed to be between a 90 to 100 and or 120 for vitamin D. Your doctor may send your blood levels to another lab and their ranges are different. But what I can tell you is for African Americans, we should be at the higher end for vitamin D. We have melanin in our skin. We
right,
need the sun. You
right.
see. So that's a whole nother ball game. And that's what we'll be doing on Patreon. So when people want to know the skinny about that kind of thing, they want to go over to Patreon. And that's where we talk about the real skinny, because it's not just a black and white answer. Not anymore. Not in 2024. There's a conglomerate of things that needs to be said about blood levels, about ethnicities, about healthy choices. But yes, you do go to your doctor for your baseline. But the doctor is not sitting at your table telling you don't eat this and don't eat that.
Well, you may not know what to eat because you may come from a background where, well, look at blacks, for example. Black African slaves got the parts of the pig,
That
and
nobody wanted, right?
okay, so if you come from a history of that, if you're from the South, and I'm from the South. But if you're from the South, and I didn't realize, in fact, until I worked in Georgia, that culturally, um, blacks and whites are very similar. I lived in Georgia, so let me be specific. I'm only talking about Georgia. The first Thanksgiving that I experienced in the city in Georgia, well, driving from the place where I worked home, I saw people on the side of the road with bushels of collard greens and bushels of potatoes, sweet potatoes, and the like. Well, I wanted to go to a normal store and not stop on the side of the road. So I went to the equivalent of a King Supers, and I got everything that I needed for the cornbread dressing, everything I needed for the candied yams, the mac and cheese, the collard greens, and all of that, and got in line to check out. The lady
Now,
who came up behind me was white, and she had everything in her cart that I had in mine. We struck up a conversation, and she said, I don't know why they insist on calling it soul food, because we all eat like this in Georgia. Now, I don't know about other places in the South, but culturally, we may have grown up not eating a balanced meal, not eating the foods that would help us become strong, develop calcium, whatever, because we didn't have the availability of it. Even in
well,
Denver,
for one, the reason why they call it soul food, they can cook the flavor. That's our flavor. But you're right. In the South, they eat greens, but they learned it from who they. I don't know if she did. I don't know if she realized who they learned it from, but the
I
thing,
think she knew. I think she knew. She was just trying to talk about what we had in common. And she
right?
didn't like blacks taking all of the credit for the dishes that had really come from Africa with the slaves for the most part. And then the
Well, I will
ingenuity.
say this: they didn't in Africa. They didn't eat a lot of meat.
No, they
They were mostly fruits and vegetables, but and fish. But yeah, you see how that it can just is so much and it's so in depth that people are just now starting to learn, how to eat, how to get their blood levels down, how to get their blood pressures down and
yeah,
diabetes. And there's teas. But see, that's something growing up. There are teas that's medicinal that kept the blood pressures low, that kept diabetes low. And people that had farms, they ate mostly vegetables, fruits and vegetables. So, there's a lot of people of color that have lived past 100. And then you find out they ate mostly fruits and vegetables and very little sugar.
yeah. I'm just saying that there's so much that people don't know about nutrition. They just don't know, and they don't know where to go in order to get that information. Now you're offering Patreon, and that's good, that's great, but most people don't know enough about food. And then it used to be that we ate home cooked meals. Well,
Yeah.
when both men and women started having to work for a living, then that's when the McDonald's and the other fast food restaurants came into prominence. So people stopped cooking. And then, my goodness, when TV dinners became popular, you, you fill your freezer up with TV
But
dinner.
see, and I'm going to call that a setup.
Okay.
because yes, it was easy to just people started working and to just pick up something quick. But
Yeah.
for me, I call it a setup because I still cook and I'm still busy. But I know a lot of people have kids, they have a lot of things going on, and that's fine. But that's just it. Fast foods will make you decline fast.
Yeah, that's true. I quite agree. No argument here whatsoever. I guess because I worked years ago for the Colorado Department of Health, my emphasis is on health education, on providing information either in the form of a pamphlet or when you went in for your well baby checks or for shots and all of that, learning some things from the nurse who saw you primarily, and then rarely from the doctor. But health education, I think, is just so important that people know what they don't know, number one, and then they learn what they ought to know. And we're not disagreeing. I think we're in firm agreement, but people just don't know a lot. They
No, they
just
don't. They really don't. And then when you offer free, then they want to question the credentials. But knowledge is power. And when
yeah.
people learn to make healthy choices, like I said, share this out. Come on, you can get the link, you can ask questions, and they'd rather watch something different. Uh, the demise of people's lives. Why not take the time to educate self and learn how to get in alignment so we can be our best selves? So the world is still trying to figure that out.
Well, part of it is the role of education, of teaching in the lives of children. I grew up in Chicago. Every summer, beginning in July and going through the 1st of September, there would be a commercial that was run on TV. Parents, don't do anything with your children. Send them to us and we will educate them. That's how I grew up. And so the teacher had a real prominent position and role in what you learned and when you learned it. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. I'm sure Chicago doesn't offer that kind of free lunch kind of thing because they might be sued for whatever reasons. We're really a Sioux city and all of that. But we have to understand how and when the decisions are made by educators what kids are to learn. And that is just part and parcel of education. So we have to, and this is a push I'm making now, and that's for parents to become more involved in the schools where their children go. They,
Yes.
I know we work every day. I know we're tired. I know so many things are competing, but we need to be going to those school board meetings.
I know. I
We need
used
to be
to
going to the teacher
I
conference.
used to volunteer in the schools.
Yeah,
And all the kids knew me, but yeah,
but that
I
you were
agree.
you were rare, and I know you'd have to know that you were rare for whatever reason. I'm not trying to take anybody's excuses from them or appear as if I don't understand because I've been a working parent and I've worked two jobs and parented and all of that. but we need to be more involved in our children's education. We need to learn how to go and
But why do we need to tell? Why do we even need to say that as a
because
parent?
people
How
don't
come we
know
don't know to be involved?
because they haven't been taught. That's why they have not been taught. And excuses abound. I'm tired. I have three kids in three different schools. How do I choose which one to go to and all of that? There are reasons why we don't do what we need to do, but because we don't do it, we can exercise no power. We
And
cannot
and uh,
exercise power over the policies that are decided by the few people who attend school board meetings or school setting meetings. See, we got to become more involved in the politics of this world because if we
yeah,
don't, the Supreme Court is going to try and end up taking the few things that they've left to us in terms of voter education, voter registration, and all of that. We sat and didn't know that they were going to remove guarantees that we received in 1965 with the Voting Rights Act. I'm just saying, we got to do better.
yeah, we do. We got to do a whole lot better. And uh, that's the thing. But that's why I think these talks, these communities on the platforms will benefit people because a lot of people don't know where to go anymore.
That's
But
right.
you've got these social platforms that you can join, and then you can also take it to a private platform. So that's why I'm trying to find out, where are the people? Why don't they come and get involved? And why not help us to name our new um, uh, Patreon page so people can talk. And yes, they pay for everything else. And I think it would be well worth it because it's time and it's private and people can come together and get involved where we can tell them and help them and show them, because what they're seeing on these other platforms is beyond me. Is it helping them? Is it educating them? Are they really, really gaining knowledge? You see, so that's what I was hoping we could do on this platform, is to give knowledge and then take it over to Patreon, where you really get the skinny, where you really get the for real, for real, for real. But we got to start somewhere. We got to start on these platforms, and everybody always say, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, I think that'll be a great idea. But then one person even said, oh, what did she say? Comments. I'm sorry. Are you still on there? She was talking about she was a new viewer and I didn't even see. Oh, hello, Michelle. I'm hoping you're still on. Michelle Makeups and more. Hello, new viewer. Well, welcome to our platform. Make sure you come next week and join the platform. We'd be glad to have you. Who else is on here? We're missing people. Uh, Oh, we had somebody on there, Michelle Makeup and More, keeping up with P. I'm not sure what she's talking about. Boutique, where you're welcome to come on the platform if you'd like to I'll give a shout out, and then one person saying she will join platform next week. She's cleaning. Well, that's nice. You can clean and join a platform. We don't care. Just be yourself. You can still clean and talk. Okay. Well, what else do we have to say? Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, True C. Stanley, we'll look forward to you joining next week. I hope you're a person of your word, because that's what this channel is all about. Yup. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't just talk a good game. Show up and show out. Over here on Simply Jewel. What you say, Dr. D? Tying all this together, do you have something you can read for us tonight?
I sure do, but I really second your your motion uh, in terms of inviting us to do, and I'm not saying that only Black people are on the podcast, but Black people are known as communicators. We can communicate in all kinds of ways. And this is one of the most recent ways that we can communicate, but the more the merrier. And
Right.
I know that you will allow each person to have space to talk because I believe if someone signs on, they have things to say. They want to be heard. And I think your invitation is wonderful. I really do. I'm glad that you invited me, and I'm glad that I took you up on it and look forward to some more. Tonight, I wanted to read something because the scope of my grief covers generations, covers relationships in terms of blood, it covers other relationships. And one of the people whose death threw me into a loop, as Courtney's did, was my very first grandson. Now, I want you
Oh,
to know I was a very young grandmother. My
really?
daughter, yes, truth. My daughter became pregnant in high school as a senior and was able to keep it hidden from the Denver public school system, or else I
Sure.
think she would have had to go to a different kind of school. But at any rate, she graduated. No, she was in private school, so that's another reason why. But she had the baby. She had already been admitted to a couple of colleges. She went away, and I became grandmother in charge, kind of thing.
Okay.
And so I want to read about Philip and my relationship with him. And the blog is titled Still Mad with God. It's number 19. Because the feelings feel so nuanced. Often my anger at God over the death of Courtney, my daughter, surprises me. Anger catches me off guard. I'm totally unprepared for the rush of emotions that threatens to drown me and sabotage whatever activity in which I may be engaged. Just as critically, I'm the product of parents who didn't dare question God or his decisions. Quote, thy will be done, end quote, period. They quote from the King James Version of the Holy Bible. I've read too many Old Testament declarations that remind me that his ways are not my ways, his thoughts are not my thoughts, to do more than quietly adopt their counsel. And that's from Isaiah 55:8. However, my daughter's death triggered the memory of Philip, my grandson's demise, some 20 years earlier. I'm still shaken by its aftershocks. We had put Philip to bed around 8:30 Saturday night after I had read his favorite bedtime story titled, It Isn't Easy Being a Bunny. His crib faced east. He had his pacifier, pillow, and enough muted light to ease him into sweet dreams on that midsummer night. He knew when he heard sweet dreams to expect imminent sleep. When I woke early Sunday morning to run to the grocery store for cereal and milk, I never thought to look in on him. Some months before, I'd begun the early morning ritual of bathing, breakfast, and dressing him for church. The trip to the store didn't take long. Morning traffic was light. Still, I wondered why my neighbors had congregated outside my unit when I returned. I've told them, I thought, referring to my daughters, not to leave the baby alone. In a flash, though, something unnerved me. The crowd milled around as if waiting on something or someone. I parked quickly, trying to spot my daughters. Concerned that something was off kilter, I scanned the group for them. By now, my heart was racing. Something definitely had happened. Something was not right. As I jumped out of the car, barely shutting off the engine, a neighbor greeted me with, quote, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but your daughter's just discovered the baby in his crib. He's dead," end quote. Time stood still. Although my feelings were visceral, I can't put words together that would describe the shock, denial, anger, and fear that paralyzed me. "The cops are on the way," the lady concluded. What? Why? Why the police and not the paramedics, I wondered. It turned out that both had been summoned. Philip's death devastated all of us. He had been the only baby born in our family in at least a decade. Bureaucratic questions had to be answered. Paperwork consumed most of the rest of the day, which flew by in a flurry of whys, intertwined with hysterics and stiff upper lips. Thankfully, the mind donned us in protective shock attire that encased us. Mother, the family matriarch, and her prayers became the adhesive that held us together. Today, I seesaw between the pain of my Courtney's death and the pangs that remind me of the grievous loss of my first grandchild. Sometimes it takes a while to remember which loss it is I feel. Maybe they meld and merge. Truthfully, I'm still mad at God. I'd be lying if I were to pretend otherwise. Philip's death shut me down emotionally, spiritually, and physically. With each passing day, questions about death and dying overwhelmed me. A voracious reader, I haunted libraries, new and used bookstores, and the internet, foraging for definitive answers about the succession of life. For months, I couldn't go to church and stay throughout a service because the memories of him in the pulpit Yes, the pulpit at 22 months, or in pastor's study, reminded me too relentlessly of my grievous loss. I bore too much pain to ignore, never realizing I had given up everything. Yet I kept some semblance of sanity because I knew I had to be there for my daughters. My daughters and I did not talk about anything or anyone. Instead, we played an elaborate game of let's pretend. Now I wonder why I didn't see or feel anything. Is that why vision and hearing, especially, seem so out of whack, so awkward? Is that where the physical pain, not to mention the emotional trauma, germinated? Was I that invested in not going there? Where? The too feared to be investigated places because they scare me senseless? That's where. For months, I was too afraid to question, wonder, or speculate. Afraid of questioning God because I had been reared by Depression era parents who didn't dare question God. My manager, where I worked, a pediatrician, offered to read and explain the autopsy report, but I was too afraid to know what caused Philip's death. What would I have done with the knowledge? From the vantage point of 2 decades and plenty of experience, I understand now that I never completed the traditional phases or movements of grief, that of shock, anger, denial, bargaining, and depression, leading to a semblance of acceptance. Hadn't been introduced to the emotional roller coaster of grief. I had never understood the succession of life, even intellectually. So I was one confused child trying to help my even younger children. I doubt if we ever fully grasped much about living and dying. Not then, not even now.
That's beautiful. I tell you, you do have a wonderful way of writing. I just think I marvel anybody that can write, but to hear you say and to express your feelings, that is amazing. I appreciate you. I appreciate you willing to share your excerpts. And let me see if I can put this up. So, for those who really want to get the book, you can get it on Amazon. Let me see if I can put that up again to show it. This is Dr. Dorothy T. Clark, Notes from a Broken Heart. She has just read an excerpt from her book. You can get it, as you know, on Amazon. And Dr. D, I appreciate you. I want you to know that we have um, waited for those to come on. We'll keep trying every week to see if anybody wants to join us. As we know, we've got a few people that say they're going to come on next week, so we'll pick up where we left off. Anything else you'd like to say before
Yes,
we sign out?
I would. First of all, I thank you for your kind words. Secondly, I have to acknowledge, admit, tell it, I don't write, I record. When I sit down, and when I sat down to write that piece, I had no idea what words would come out. Now, 15, 20 years before, when I was writing for work, reports, and those kinds of things, I would sit at my computer, whether at work or at home, and I say, now, God, you write and I'll type. So the words come from spirit, and I praise God for the ability that He's loaned to me to try and convey. The third thing, and I said there were only two, but the third thing is once I started writing the blogs, and thank you for the banner, Notes from a Broken Heart at the bottom of the page, I was writing just not to go crazy. Maybe 6 months after I started writing, I looked at the statistics that this page keeps. The first name that jumped out at me was Ukraine. And I looked at the list and I could not believe it. France, England, Bogota, countries in Africa. I think Chad was one of those. But there were just people, uh, United Arab Emirate, all kinds of people. Now, I did not advertise. I don't know how to advertise. I can only believe that people go online looking for something, and that spirit directed them to my page because I had nothing to do with it. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I hope that my words can help in the healing process, but it is a process. And for many of us, it takes time. But I have
Yes.
to acknowledge that God is the one who writes these words. I just record them.
That's amazing. Well, like we say, everything is everything, and we never know. Energy begets energy. I really do believe that. And so, as we continue to go through this journey, you and I, I'm sure we will meet others along the way, so we just have to be consistent. And, Virgos, we don't give up like many, like
No, we
some.
don't.
We just keep on going, and we figure it out, and we figure out ways to connect. And those that are supposed to connect will connect. That I do believe. So I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on once again. For all you that don't know, Dr. D will exclusively be on my channel every Saturday, and we may even grow and do a couple of lives on Instagram. Who knows? Well, one thing for certain, two things for sure. You can catch us back here at uh, Simply Jewel Cosmetics and Health Services on Facebook, or Simply Jewel TV on YouTube. And just hopefully share this out. It may not help you, it may help somebody So share, share, share. Thanks for coming on. And as we serenade and say goodnight to you guys, peace and blessings. Hope to see you next week, okay? Bye
Good night.
bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Doctor. I'll put this back up as we say goodnight.